Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the Mobileye GT World Challenge Esports Asia Sprint Series Round 1 here from the beautiful Imola Grand Prix circuit in Italy. My name is Paul Jeffrey, and today, guiding you through all of the excitement, I'm delighted to welcome none other than Mr. David Addison.
Paul, everybody, morning. We are set for a great opening, aren't we, to this Mobileye GT World Challenge Asia Esports Championship. Not only is it an absolutely monster grid of 49 cars, but also you've got quite a few of last year's star silver drivers stepping up to the pro class. And it's going to be really interesting now to see how they get on in that sort of company, how that affects the dynamic of the race. And also, we're starting at Imola, which is a fantastic old school circuit, Paul.
Yep, absolutely. As you say, 49 cars on a circuit that is not the largest track that we go to this season, 4.9 kilometres in length. Traffic is going to be a big issue. Staying out of trouble is going to be absolutely critical for these 49 drivers. And with two classes, the pros and the silvers, we've got two different things that we're racing for. And David, as you said, the entry list is stacked full of talent. We've got drivers here that we've seen before in the Asia Series, and courtesy of the qualification, we've got drivers that are brand new into this championship and looking to set a name for themselves going forwards.
And you've also got a nice mix of cars and teams as well, because we've got Bentleys, we've got Aston Martins, we've got Porsche, we've got BMW, we've got Honda, we've got Ferrari with the new 296, we have got Lamborghini in the entry. There's still just about representation from Audi, although not as numerically strong as once it was. So, yeah, there's a lot to enjoy in this. And of course, as ever, Paul, it's split over those two classes. There's the overall fight to enjoy, but then we need to keep an eye on that silver fight as well.
Yep, absolutely. And looking at the qualification times, which we'll see on our screen in a moment, those silver drivers are very much in the mix for the top positions. In fact, here is the grid with Dylan Tan, the man that's on pole position, just ahead of Ferris Stanley, rounding out the front row. Sotomuto and Filippa Bakida are in positions 3 and 4. And then the first of our silver drivers in 5th position, car number 34 that you see there, is Arisana. He's going to have a good chance to move forward. Sang and Addison are 6th and 7th, no relation, I hope, David, with with Reyes in 8th from Chan in 9th position. Car number 815 that you see to the left of your screen now is the Audi R8 LMS Evo 2, the first of the Audis for Gong, with Smith and Aslan. Naguib Aslam, a driver that we've seen a lot of this championship, in 12th place. Andrew Lawrenson, car 666, is 13th on the grid, just ahead of Ristofane in the BMW M4 GT3. And Dika Milana, one of the standout stars of earlier SRO Asia competition, he's a disappointed 15th on the grid, but expect that Mercedes to move forward, with Lam in 16th, Huang in 17th, Andrew O'Hara is position 18th in the Lamborghini, the first of the Lamborghinis on this grid, and then Nabiel 19th in yet another BMW. As we go down the grid, David, 49 cars, pro and silver. This is literally a race that anybody could win if they get through those first few corners.
I think you just hit the nail on the proverbial, because you've got to keep out of trouble at that first sequence of corners. Otherwise, you are in real strife. You've got that chicane that takes you up through the Tamburello, and then the first part of the lap has quite a few pinch points on it. When it starts to open up, you think, okay, good, we've cleared that problem. And then you come plunging back downhill, down towards the Acqua Minerale, where there's another chicane and there are more curbs, and then you've got the Variante Alta, where there's another chicane and more curbs. Track limits is often an issue there, but so also rattling a car over the curbs does it a power of no good. So there is certainly an element to the first couple of laps of trying to keep out of trouble. And Dylan Tan, Ferris Stanley, the front row drivers, they don't have it easy, but they're certainly in the pound seats. The place you do not want to be is around about row 15, because you've got cars all around you. You're going to be in a whole world of pain for the first few laps.
Speaking of exactly that, a few drivers, a few pointers that I need to bring up before we go into the race, of drivers that are further down the field than you would expect. James Baldwin, 35th on the grid. Anybody who knows James Baldwin knows he wins, is a serial winner in SRO Esports competition. So he's in the danger zones. Yuki Sharikara as well, 43rd position in the Aston Martin. Another very, very fast driver that we expect to move forward. So
is it not Jake Baldwin, at the risk of being pedantic?
Oh, is it now? It is, you know, it is. So that's, disregard everything I've said. It's too early in the morning.
But have another coffee. Either way,
please.
Jake Baldwin is somebody that's normally pretty rapid. Perhaps he's not a James Baldwin pace, but he's one to watch for Alfa Venturi. And the fact that he's in a Lamborghini on Italian soil, virtual soil, makes him one to watch anyway. Dylan Tan, though, don't forget, was last year's champion. He's on pole position. And last year, out of the 5 rounds, he won 4 of them. He very much starts here as the favourite. Filippo Bocchida, silver champion of last year, sitting on the outside of the 2nd row. And the other driver to keep an eye on is Andika Malana, who had 1 race win last year. He's aboard 889 Mercedes AMG from the Sports Team Legion of Racers squad, but he's quite a long way back on the grid relatively. So where is he? 15th. He's got progress to make, certainly.
Yep, absolutely. As I think, as we said at the top of the show, this is going to be one of those races where the first 2 or 3 laps, stay out of trouble, make your way through if you've had a disappointing qualification, consolidate if you're in the pound seats at the front of the field, and just let the race settle into a rhythm. Traffic's going to be an issue. Overtaking opportunities are plentiful around this circuit in these cars, and it's the first race of a 5-round season. So again, it's all about thinking, 4-round season, it's all about thinking the long-term prospects. Make sure you get a good start to your campaign and build on it as you move forward.
And it's not a long championship season, as you say. The drivers don't have that many races, and equally, you cannot afford to give away points. So you've got to finish, you've got to score, and you've got to score well, and that just adds to the pressure, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and of course, there's money to be won as well, Mr. David Addison. So the race is about to start. I'll hand over to you and let's go racing.
So it is a whole new season, season 3 of the Mobileye GT World Challenge Asia Esports Championship. There are pros, there are silvers, everybody in GT3 machinery. It is a monster-sized grid, great variety in the brands on track. It is a 1-hour race. We've not even touched on mandatory pit stops yet, but we will. And we've got 1 car in strife already with a connection issue, but enough of the dramas because the action at the front of the grid is about to get underway then. Up towards the lights they come. Mercedes versus BMW. Dylan Tan versus Ferris Stanley at the front of the grid. Filippo Bocchida, one to watch on the 2nd row. As the light change, we go racing. And Dylan Tan, true to form, makes a great start. Ferris Stanley comes up on the outside line in the BMW as they blast their way up towards the Tamburello for the first time. Dylan Tan it is up the curb who grabs the advantage. He's on the outside line, squeezes Ferris Stanley up the curb. That protects the race lead, and there's drama in the mid-pack with 1 car bouncing like a pinball from car to car, left and right. That breaks up the pack a little bit. I think possibly Deffer Alianza was in the mix in all of that, but Dylan Tan it is who's got away. Others go rally crossing.
Yeah, really scruffy first few corners, but the majority of the field are through. Sotomuto got a poor launch away from the line, but he's managed to recover back in the AMG Mercedes into 3rd position. So good recovery from Soto there to hold on to the bottom step of the podium. Couple of cars running wide further down the running order, and just as you said, David, this middle pack is frantic in these opening laps.
And already we're getting reports of incidents being looked at by the stewards, so true to form there as well. There's a lot going on as race leaders dive downhill. This is the run to the Acqua Minerale. Round the outside there, look, in 25 goes Zachary Smith, another graduate from the silver category of last year, going nicely as Dylan Tan tries to break away. Ferris Stanley is 2nd. In 3rd, it is Sotomuto for the Williams esports team. Deffer Alianza is 4th. So what's happened to Filippo Bocchida? Well, 7th is the answer. Qualified 4th, drop back. And that's Yatlam Law, I think, in all sorts of pain on the opening lap. Gets it back in the right direction, but that's a big, costly error.
Yeah, real disappointing for Yatlam Law, another one of the drivers that we've seen plenty of over the course of the SRO Asia Esports Series. A lot of work to do now, down in 46th position. And of course, the real estate that he's lost from the cars ahead as well will take some regaining as this race progresses. Bocchida, as you say, down in 7th position as well, so a bit of drama for her, but hopefully she'll make a recovery drive. Plenty of racing to go as Kai Kim Young coming up through the field of the 219 Bentley, the purple Bentley Continental there, getting a good run. The slipstream down the curve start very straight, contact as well, and the wall is the end result. That was very scruffy indeed from our drivers in the middle of the pack.
Was a bit unnecessary as well, coming in almost a straight line, and that wall doesn't move very fast, so the damage is taken by the car. So up front then, Dylan Tan leading Ferris Stanley. The gap was 6/10 when they crossed the stripe. In 3rd spot, Sotomuto then. 4th is the Solox entry out of the silver class of Deffer Alianza. which is a very good effort right now. Then in 5th spot, 33, that is Chris Sang in the Z Challenger Racing BMW, and it is Luke Addison's Genesis Sports BMW to round out the top 6 as the leaders dive downhill. There is Luke Addison's BMW. He's attacking, he's defending, he's in a real battle pack as up front Dylan Tan tries to break away. Harry Stanley, though, is doing a pretty good job of staying with him.
Yep, absolutely, and this is interesting. We've got 4th position for Arianza and 6th position for Addison, silver class drivers. So they're racing in their own category for their own points, for their own prize money, but they're firmly in the mix for the outright victory, racing with the pro drivers. And this is difficult, David, for the AM drivers now, because do you challenge, do you get involved in a fight that doesn't necessarily impact your overall classification? And the problem is, if you try and take yourself away from that battle, so close as the field, you're going to hemorrhage positions and lose time overall. So it's a difficult balancing act that these AM drivers or silver class drivers have got to do at this moment in time.
Yeah, you know about picking your battles, don't you? On board now with 815 Gong in the Drive Just Boys Racing Team Audi, has a go on the outside line at the Tamburello chicane. It doesn't work, and that then puts him on the back foot as up to have a go at him comes Kobe Chan's BMW. Look back from Gong's Audi. He's on the defensive now rather than attacking, and he's going to lose out surely. Yes, the BMW goes round the outside, so Kobe Chan gains a place, rattles up the curb. That gives the Audi the chance to come back then as they blast down towards the Villeneuve chicane and then onto the Tosa hairpin. Climb uphill. But Shonin Gong tried to make a place. He's lost out. He's fallen back to 12th.
Nice piece of driving though there to give each other racing room, which is what we like to see in this championship. Although we've got pros and silvers, every one of these drivers is very experienced, very classy in the way that they go about their racing. And although it's a position loss for Shonin Gong, it was very nice indeed to keep himself in the conversation, keep himself in the fight. And Ristafani behind now is very interested. A little bit of a batch of the silver class cars here. Gong, Ristafani, Lawrenson, Poing and Dika Milana dropping one position down to 16th.
Milana should not be dropping, should he? Milana should be going forward. Runner-up last year, only 15th on the grid. There is something not right as far as the Mercedes-AMG Esports Team Legion of Racers entry is concerned. That was Chris Sang, number 33, you saw go through in the BMW. And as the next wave of cars powers its way up towards the line, the lead gap was going up. It was over a second last time. Dylan Tan getting away from Ferris Stanley. Chris Sang on his toes, trying to fight back as he comes over the line. Dafar Adianza, the silver leader in the Solox entry, just up the road ahead. So that now puts the leaders onto their third lap, and Sang a little bit ragged through the chicane there. Lost a little bit of time as he had to just check the pace of the BMW for fear of it rattling over the curb.
That's also part of the armoury of drivers in this championship as well. It's looking after your car, having some mechanical sympathy. Don't take risks where they're not necessary. It's a 1 hour race. There's a mandatory pit stop window, 20 minutes, where you've got to go in and change tyres. So their strategy, and as well as that, David, 49 cars, as you say, on a relatively small circuit, we will get traffic during the course of this race, and we've seen it so many times before. That's when opportunities present themselves, as well as additional drama that you have to try and navigate through. So it's not all about the here and now. You also need to have a very firm eye on what's going to happen further down the road.
Indeed so, and especially as you made the point, traffic is going to be a feature really from probably about lap 6-7 onwards for the rest of the day. And just when you think you're in clear track space, somebody makes a pit stop in that window and comes out in front of you, and your plan ends up changing. Chris Sang then on the back of Dafar Adianza. Now Adianza is in a bit of a tough situation here. Doesn't want to be battling unnecessarily and risk getting into an incident when he's a class leader, but if he lets Sang go, then he's easy prey for the charging Luke Addison. At the moment, he's got a bit of a cushion, hasn't he, of a pro-class car between himself and his silver opposition. So for the moment, he's got to keep on fighting, make that car wide, stick out his elbows and keep the BM at bay.
Absolutely, but I don't think that's going to last very long at all. So Chris Sang firmly in the slipstream for the run down into the first chicane. Will Adianza defend? Will he leave the door open? He keeps to the racing line, but Sang recognises doesn't have enough of an overlap, so stays in behind, live to fight another day. But that's interesting that we've seen there straight away. Adianza not defending the inside line, so he wants that position, but it looks like he's not going to fight too hard, and he's keeping his eye on the silver class altogether.
Looking at the inset of Andika Maulana, who is having a pretty torrid time right now, as we've been making the point, he's dropped back rather than going forward, and there's no indication either that he is about to try and jump the Kui Shen Huang Porsche. the 992 iteration of the 911 ahead of him, the full-pace racing car, because that car, for the moment, the Porsche, looks the more solid. And Dika Maulana, there's something just not right in that Mercedes. You look at what's further up the road, you've got a Mercedes in the lead, a Mercedes AMG third as well, but for Maulana, something in the setup presumably just has not clicked. On board now with Luke Addison, sixth, second of the silvers. Chris Sang's BMW ahead. A lot of BMWs in that leading eight, aren't there?
Yeah, they really are. The car seems to be competitive here at the Imola circuit, good round the curves, good on acceleration as well as the BMW. So that's really a potent tool in the hands of our race leading drivers. But going back to Maulana again now, as we see him on screen, you're absolutely right. He's a driver that anybody who's familiar with the world of SRO Esports and the Asia Championship knows that name. He's an incredibly strong driver, very fun-loving, doesn't let the pressure get to him. So we know if you put Dika Maulana in a car, he will extract the pace that it's capable of. So there's definitely an underlying issue somewhere there, David, with his car in 16th position. By the way, incident between cars 449 and 215 on lap 1. 10-second penalty for 215, and that, of course, is car driven by Mohamed Koutoube. So Mohamed Koutoube, has a 10-second penalty to be applied to his race.
Andrew Lawrenson in the Laundry House 666 Mercedes AMG with the Leighton House clothing in the background, just to sort of complete the effect of all of this. You can easily tell where the team name came from. I used to have a Leighton House t-shirt like that a long time ago, but the Laundry House team, which has been a stalwart squad on Esports Asia grids, and Andrew Lawrenson currently running in 14th place. He's another of the silvers. He's the sixth of the silver drivers right now. His target is Rialto Ristofani's BMW just up the road. It's always fascinating, isn't it, to see the different demeanour of the driver. Well, you can't see much of Andrew on that because of the headgear that he's wearing and all the cabling and the seatbelts. I've not, I don't think, really been conscious before, Paul, of drivers with seatbelts. Yes, gloves, yes, team clothing, maybe different visual aids, but never seatbelts.
Now that depends. That could very well be that he's got a seatbelt tensioner, which is a little bit of tactile immersion. So when you brake hard, it pulls. Sorry, when you accelerate hard, it pulls you back into the seat. It kind of simulates G-forces. But I'll tell you something. If he's got that and a VR headset on, that's going to be an incredibly warm environment to race, and that may impact the performance with fatigue a little bit later on, although Andrew looks like a chap who keeps good care of himself, so I'm sure he'll be okay.
Now, Dylan Tan is about to break the timing beam. He has already done the fastest lap, but so also matching in for pace has been Sotamuto. So the Mercedes AMG's first and third. Ferris Stanley is starting now to drop away just ever so slightly. It's a couple of tenths here, 10th there. The BMW you can see in the background in second place. Third is Muto. And then still that battle pack rages on for fourth place. Dafa Alianza, Chris Sang, Luke Addison, Filippa Bokida in seventh place. They wriggle their way here. Look out of the Villeneuve chicane on towards Tosa, one of the famous corners of the Imola circuit. And Imola that has returned, if you like, to mainstream modern Formula One racing in recent years. Sadly, lost its recent Grand Prix because of the appalling weather and the net result of all of that. But it's great to have it back on the F1 calendar. And let's hope that it remains on there for many more seasons to come.
Yeah, absolutely. An iconic circuit, of course, and a beautiful driver's test. Beautiful part of Italy. Imola really is a sensational venue to go racing. Not so sensational for Chris Sang, though. He's going to be getting frustrated. No longer is he chewing at the back of Arianza ahead. He's starting to come under pressure from Luke Addison behind, and this is really going to be irritating Chris Sang, because these cars are in a different class. So the more he gets wrapped up in this little battle, the more he's becoming detached from those that really matter for him, which is the podium places up front. And if you're in the Z Challenger BMW, you're going to be thinking, because we're not far away from that pit window, David, is he going to be thinking it's time for some strategy now? Do I do what these guys don't and take myself out of the equation? But then does that bring me into a fight further down the field with an ultimate slower pace? So you're in a no-win situation if you're Chris Sang here.
I agree with that, and certainly he does need to think strategy. I think you're right. He also needs to be mindful at the moment that because he's having to defend from Luke Addison, he is losing time to Dafa Alianza. The gap is up to 0.8 of a second between Aston Martin and BMW. But yes, if he makes an early pit stop, he gets out of that traffic, rejoins in other traffic. So it really is frying pan and fire, which one to jump into. Filippa Bokida, in the meantime, running in seventh place, tucked up behind Luke Addison's similar BMW. And an incident on the opening lap between treble 2 of Rialto Ristofani and number 15 Matthew Lamb. No further action to be taken. Tam, though, is getting away. 2 seconds clear now of Ferry Stanley.
Yeah, this is perfect for Dylan Tam. This is exactly what he hoped to do. Get a good start, clear any kind of danger at the start of the race and start building that gap. The reason he's keen to build that gap, A, you're going to be changing tyres at the pit stop, so you don't need to worry about the longevity of the rubber. But B, he needs a comfort blanket for when this inevitable traffic starts, which we're not far away from getting into that kind of zone. So Tan thinking, very wise, performing absolutely perfect at this moment in time and doing exactly what he needs to do to solidify his chances of taking this race victory. With 46.5 minutes left on the clock, there's still plenty of time to go, but you do everything you can in your power here and now to improve your chances.
Absolutely, more great squabbles going on here. Look, a long line of cars pouring downhill, including number 6 Kinlong Lai's Godspeed Pro Class Honda NSX GT3 Evo. The Bentley that rather dwarfs the cars behind it, towering over them as it comes into view up now towards the Variante Alta. Go right, go left, big dive up the inside from the Ferrari, rattles over the curb, just about works. 10-second penalty to Kutubi, as we touched on earlier on. He is in 36th on the road, but that time penalty is going to be yet another handicap for him as we approach the end of the first 15 minutes of the race, with Dylan Tan consistently building the lead. On board now with the other driver looking to make progress on the pit stops.
Now, if I'm taking away from his first 15-minute racing, it seems to be a lot more difficult to pass in this field than I expected coming into the race. We know that it's possible to pass at Imola, but the level of drivers is so high in this championship. The pace differential between each other is very, very small indeed. And as you said, David, Bakina dropped to 7th off the start. Would have expected her to maybe start thinking about moving through the pack, especially with silver class cars in front, but everybody's so evenly matched at this moment, it's difficult to get that car alongside, and this early in the race it's a little bit too risky to try and get it down on the brakes and do a bit of a throw it down and shut your eyes and hope for the best kind of manoeuvre. So this is not going to be lost on our drivers, I think, and this is going to play bigly into the strategic planning as we see Bakina down in 8th.
Yeah, because now that puts Russell Reyes up ahead. I think you're right in terms of the fact that it is proving hard to pass. Part of it is the balance of performance, of course, whether it's a real world GT3 race or an esports race, that BOP does equate the cars. But perhaps also it's as much down to the drivers because they've done a lot of esports racing over the last 3 seasons, whether it's been in SRO championships or elsewhere. And so they have improved as well. You know, you've got some of those silvers now becoming pros. They've been picked up by factory teams, for example, or professional teams. You know, go back 3 years and the drivers weren't as experienced. So from time to time, they'd hit a curve, they'd run a bit wide, they'd carry too much speed into a corner, they'd make an error. That gave you an opportunity. They're all operating now, arguably, at a much higher level. Those mistakes don't come.
I'd absolutely agree with that one as well. Any race driver, real or virtual, the more mileage you do, the more competition that you take part in, the more your experience and your skill level raises, the more tools that you have in your armoury, so to speak, to put a good performance together. And it's always been an incredibly high level in the world of SRO esports. Some could argue probably the highest level in virtual racing. And every year we start a new season, and every year I'm shocked how everybody's upped their game yet again. And I think you're absolutely right, David. I think these drivers are all performing at the absolute peak of their ability, maximising the speed in the car, maximising the strategy and the setup and the track conditions. And the end result is you're going to have to work a damn sight harder today than you did 3 years ago to find a way past.
Yeah. And what I also find impressive is how many silvers do you have within the top dozen, for example. You know, it's not a discernible, there are the pros, and then down in 34th, that's where the silver contest comes into play. You know, the good silvers do humble many of the pros, and that's another big plus point in the strength of this championship. As you can see, the race leaders heading over the timing line with Dylan Tam, now nearly 2.5 seconds clear of Ferry Stanley, who in turn is just over 1.5 seconds clear of Sotomuto in 3rd place. Luke Addison goes through them. The South African driver makes a move to the inside of Chris Sang. He's got to be careful here because he doesn't want to get his nose chopped off. Just backed out of that in time, but that was a proper send up the inside. Chris Sang was able to defend, but Luke Addison has served intent. He's crawling all over the back of him, conscious as well that if it goes wrong for him, Reyes and Bakina will be through as well.
Yep, Sang is struggling now big time. He's 2 seconds in arrears to the car in front, so he's lost a couple of seconds. Oh, there's a big dive from Reyes down the inside. Good overtaking manoeuvre. Can he hold it on corner exit? We've got a side-by-side run, and who's got the bravest of the brave on the next braking zone?
It is going to be on the inside line, I think. Russell Reyes, he brakes late, but he couldn't quite stay alongside. So Luke Addison hangs onto the place, but only just. Remember, not only is this a battle for 6th overall, but it's for 2nd in silver, playing into the hands of Defa Ardianza, who is getting away up the road then as the cars come out of the Acqua Minerale, climb the hill. So Ardianza is getting away, and look now that Chris Sang has been absolutely gifted a gap, hasn't he? He can breathe a sigh of relief for a few corners as Addison now tries to catch back up again.
Now let's see, this is a big test. Does Addison have enough pace to keep the gap that's just been gifted to him, courtesy of that little battle pack, or are these three going to close to the back of Addison and prove that he is the cork in the bottle at this stage in the race? I fear that Luke Addison just doesn't have the speed in that car at this moment in time, and if the likes of Reyes, Bakida can all just work together to close to the back of Sang ahead, that's going to be absolutely critical for their prospects of staying in touch.
Yeah, it'll be interesting waiting to see what Luke Addison can do, because a lap ago he was the quicker, he was able to get up alongside approaching this corner, and now he's trying to claw back those lost tenths. But part of the pace reduction is that he's having to take a more defensive line to keep Russell Reyes at bay, especially given that Reyes very nearly got past him. So now Luke Addison's senses are all sharpened to the fact that he needs to keep that car behind him. So 3:11, Russell Reyes in the JMX Phantom BMW, Filippo Bocchida behind. There in 10th place is the Aston Martin of Zachary Smith, the Alfa Venturi racing car. Zachary Smith, another driver moving up from silver to pro this year.
Yep, 1 place gained off the grid, started in 11th position in the Aston Martin, so he's now up into 10th place. Narbeek Aslam's the next one on the list in the McLaren that we can see there, and Smith seems like he's in a comfortable place at this moment in time on the Chargers. Moreno Pratama down in 21st place, goes side by side but gives up the ghost with a bit of contact, sees hello to the gravel as well for good measure, but he'll get that one back on track. Check your mirrors, whoa, that was close. But Moreno Pratama, the day at the beach was not for him, so he's back on the tarmac and in the race.
In the Tarmac Works car, underlining the proof there, because you don't want to be on the gravel. Tarmac will do nicely, thank you. So place is lost for Moreno Pratama, but he is still going, and so also is Filippo Bocchida, who is sort of coming alive once again in the BMW, catching back up to the tail of Russell Reyes, who had already found a way through. But Filippo Bocchida having a push now as we get to the pit window. Next fascination, who's going to be the first to bail? It's Bocchida. Filippo Bocchida gets out of the traffic. This could be a really, really canny decision.
Yep, absolutely. Perfect timing for Philippa. The pit window opened immediately as she arrived on pit entry, so she's very much the first person to take advantage of that. Huang, as well as also in the silver class, jumped down pit lane. A few of the drivers towards the rear of the field are taking that opportunity to get the stop out of the way. If you lower down, it might well be worth you doing that one, because the likelihood is you'll come out in cleaner air because there's less cars behind you, less gap behind you than the front runners. And Bocchida, she's recognised that she is quicker than the cars in front of her, so that's a great move. If she gets clean hair, hopefully we'll see on our screen, then that could be the move of the race for Filippo Bocchida.
Andrew Lawrenson up to 13th, Andika Maulana up to 14th, but they're gaining places because others are pitting rather than being able to overtake, which is significant. Lead gap 2.2 seconds, so Dylan Tan just continuing where he left off last year. Zachary Smith, in the meantime, Aston Martin number 25, chases Nakib Aslan's McLaren Axel Sports 720S, and Filippo Bocchida on her way down the pit lane. It's still quite a long drive to pit exit because you've got the white line to avoid, you've got the regulation speed as well, so it feels agonisingly slow, this bit, doesn't it?
Oh, it's infuriating. As a driver, when you've been in the heat of battle, especially like Bocchida, where she's been in very close proximity to other cars as well, so the adrenaline's pumping, to go on pit lane speed limit is infuriating. But thank you to race director for showing us that one. She has come out onto clean air, so she's got to get those tyres and brakes back up to temperature again. Brand new boots on the car, of course, but if she can do that successfully, she is in exactly where she needs to be.
Now have a look at this. Luke Addison has caught back up now to Chris Sang. Taken him a couple of laps, but he's back to where he was 2 laps ago. This time he's going to try the outside line, which is the inside line for the second part of the Tamburello chicane, and it doesn't work for him. So Chris Sang in the world's widest BMW once again is able to defend. Every time Luke Addison comes near him, that car just sort of grows in width, doesn't it? It breathes out and it keeps Luke Addison at bay. This is the view as he comes through on the inside finally to make it stick into the Villeneuve chicane. He's done it at last, and not only that, as Sang slides up to have a go at him comes Russell Race. Door is opened by Addison and Russell Race takes full advantage of that. So finally, cork is out of bottle.
Fantastic stuff. Now they've got an opportunity, but while they were squabbling, they're losing time. This is all to the advantage of Filippo Bacchida. If you're the likes of Addison and Reyes, you're going to stay out as long as you possibly can now to the end of the pit window. Unleash the pace that you've got naturally in that car. Try and set the best, most consistent lap times you can, and try and do something about the potential undercut of Bacchida behind. The likes of Sang would do well to jump in pit lane now, give up the ghost, get some fresh tyres, have another think about it, and restart his challenge. But this, David, is going to be absolutely fascinating over the next 20 minutes.
And there are more battles going on as well, a little bit further back there, because the two come side by side. Fadli Rahmat is one of them, number 62, squabbling there with Marino Morella in the Porsche. Rahmat, somebody, again, we've been familiar with for many, many seasons in SRO Esports.
Yep, absolutely. Another big name in this championship, in this part of the world, in virtual motorsport. So he's going to be a little bit frustrated. I think it's fair to say in the Tarmac Works car to be all the way down in 24th position. The Honda, an interesting choice, not necessarily the most popular of the marques in competitive professional esport races. It's a little bit older as a car compared to some of the others out there, so Rahmat not quite able to extract the full pace of it this moment in time. In fact, if anything, he's under pressure from Hobbs behind as well, so work to do in that little charging group as the race progresses.
Now, help my addled brain here. Why are relatively so few people pitting early? What do you think is the strategy behind going to the end of the window? We've seen Bacchida get out of traffic, try and buy clear track space, but the others seem reluctant to follow suit.
It's all about having your teammates in your ear, so there'll be an engineer in there, there'll be a race strategy director as well, looking where the gaps are on the racetrack, looking where you can roughly estimate how long it takes you to get down pit lane, stop the car, change the boots, get back up to racing speed, and they'll be estimating, are you going to come out in clean air, are you going to come out in traffic? If you come out, obviously because you're stopping, you're losing time, so potentially when you come out, you're going to be in and around cars that are naturally a little bit slower than you are. If you come out of pit lane behind a group of cars that are slower than you, you're giving away free lap time. So it's all about track space. Get yourself clean air, allow you to do your ultimate speed, and maybe some of these front runners don't quite fancy their chances yet, but if they wait till the end of the window, everybody else has done their stops, they'll come back out into the natural order of things and potentially minimise the time to the flag.
So this currently means that Dylan Tan, the race leader, is 2.3 seconds to the good, staying out. Pit window remains open. It's 5:30 local time in the game as Ki-Him Young in the Bentley comes towards now the Variante Alpha chicane and is looking to try to gain ground because they're just up the road ahead is 445, another of the silver entries, Matthew Pignata in the Alfa Venturi Aston Martin.
This is reassuring, David, by the way. Ki-Him Young, remember, is the driver that said hello to the retaining pit lane wall a little bit earlier on in the race. So it looks like that Bentley's managed to avoid any significant race impacting damage, which was great for him.
And it's good to have Bentleys on the grid. We don't see them in the real world racing anymore, sadly, because the Bentley programme ended, of course, but in privateer hands they do still exist somewhere. But it's good to have them in the esports series as Ki-Him Young goes over the line. Ethan Cole a little bit further back in the Mercedes there, closing on to the back of the Honda of Sam Madison, who's been a stalwart Honda racer in SRO Esports for a couple of seasons. These two squabbling over 20th place right now, and of course Madison is pro and Cale is silver.
Just look how relaxed he is behind the wheel as well. A little bit of correcting on the steering wheel just to keep the car balanced, but it's not phasing him. He's fully concentrated in the zone. That's a sign of a driver that's done plenty of practice, that's done everything that they need to do to come into this race, and now it's all about execution as we run up the hill into the chicane. Blue flags are waving to David. Just as we said, traffic now is starting to get involved in this one, making our life considerably harder as you work out who's on the right lap and who's a free pass.
Absolutely so. Right, Cale lines up to have a go as they blast down towards Rivazza, but that double apex left tiny little straight between the two, but really it's just sort of one long corner. If you get the line right, you float out to the curb, and there's the second biting point. Turn through, speed builds through the Variante Bassa, and into the pit lane comes Ethan Cale. So he elects to bail. He comes in then to get this mandatory stop done, because actually there's not that much of the pit window left. The clock is ticking down.
Yep, Luke Addison, one of the front runners, has come down pit lane as well, so that'll be a good sign for us to see exactly how much time is lost and roughly where you come back out in the running order. Addison dropped out of the 23 while he's serving that mandatory stop. Ndika Ramamolana in the 889 up into 12th position, but again courtesy of other cars having stopped in front of him rather than making positions on track. So Ndika clearly waiting for the end of the pit window to see what opportunities he can pick up, and that's not a bad play, David, in that position, because other people can have problems, and that's free passes for you.
And also trying to get through the traffic is Andrew O'Hara in the Laundry House Lamborghini, but I think he gives way, doesn't he, for the moment, to let Dylan Tan put a lap on him, because Andrew is down in 38th place overall. Love the livery on the Laundry House car. You get used to seeing them in the pseudo Leighton House colours, but that with the sort of graffiti style livery looks really, really good. It works well on that car.
It really does, and that's a lot of the personality of the Laundry House team. They're Australian guys. We've spoken to them a couple of seasons ago. They're very serious about the racing, but they're also here to enjoy themselves, have some fun, and have a laugh between themselves. And that really shows the personality, I think, of the team. And as you say, it looks very, very cool on that car as well. It's not what you normally see on the racetracks of the world, but works very well indeed.
It's very un-Lamborghini as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, yes, it's a contrast on the Miami blue colour scheme. Right, a 10-second time penalty to number 21, Luis Moreno, for causing a collision. He got involved early on in the race with Matthew Pignata. So as we nudge towards half distance, Dylan Tan right now is looking unstoppable, and it really is impressive the way that he's maintained the form of last year. He's working his way through the traffic with minimal time lost, but now 2.5 seconds clear of Ferris Stanley.
Yep, great performance at the front of the field. Plenty of racing still to go, though we haven't even hit the halfway mark, 30 minutes and 40 seconds. So 40 seconds until halfway. The traffic is starting to play into Dylan Tan's race. Look how many cars he had around him then, as pretty much everybody from 23 down to 29 jumps down pit lane. And 10 minutes, 30 seconds, David, left on the pit window as Filippo Bacchida starts to get involved in that traffic. This is the problem. Look at Luke Addison in front. They were racing for position at the front of the field, so this has worked very nicely for Filippo Bacchida.
Indeed so, gaining ground, and the speed is there as well. So Filippo lines up to have a dive, coming up towards the Tamburello chicane, and he's going to make the move, I think. Yep, done beautifully on the inside line there. Filippo Bacchida in a car that looks a lot more racy in this second stint, as Ferris Stanley comes into the pit lane, and so there behind him as well is Sotamuto.
Yeah, great stuff. Filippo Bacchida, of course, made that look so easy because her tyres are warm. Her car is already in race position, whereas Luke Addison still very much feeling his way around after making that pit stop. So Filippo Bacchida, the first of the stoppers in this race, and it's already started to pay off for her. So great stuff for Bacchida. Luis Moreno very much in the thick of things as well, down in 28th position. The Motul Racing number 21 AMG Mercedes just ahead of that beautiful Laundry House car of Andrew O'Hara. So Bacchida will be pleased about that one indeed. How much more can she make up, though, is the big question.
Another penalty has gone the way of Yuki Shirakawa for earlier dramas, so the leading 5 yet to stop. So it is now the sort of phony order. Dylan Tan from Chris Sang from Zachary Smith, Andrew Lawrenson up into 4th place, and the rest of the cars that have made their pit stops running slightly out of sequence. Matthew Pignata is yet to stop as well. He goes through as Ferris Stanley makes his way down the pit lane. Behind to rejoin as well is Sotamuto. They came in that order, they go out in the same order. Nobody gains out of that pit stop.
So let's see how close Filippo Bacchida is to these. She was a little bit detached from them before the pit window opened, before we started making the stops. But has she gained any time overall relative to those drivers? 13th position, 12th position, 11th position, 10th position in a moment, I'm sure. Yes, it is. Thank you very much. So Bacchida making those track positions up. But what's really important for her, what she's trying to achieve with this strategy, is not necessarily track position. It's the distance to the cars in front. It's how much time that she's won or lost courtesy of that move. That's going to be the real acid test of if this works or not.
Now in the background we had a couple of BMWs rattling wide over the curb coming out of the Villeneuve chicane, but it looked to me as though Russell Race had got ahead of Luke Addison. This is Dylan Tam coming down the pit lane then to serve the mandatory stop. So this has got to be done absolutely to perfection. The Tarmac Works liveried car then has been going very impressively thus far. Philippa Bokida, however, on a mission with clear road ahead. This has got to be a string of qualifying laps, hasn't it, to try to reduce the deficit. No longer is she thinking about silver class win. She's up to pro now. Only overall victories will do.
Yep, absolutely. She doesn't need to worry about the tyre life either. There's only 30 minutes left in the race. These tyres will do that kind of race distance. Absolutely no problem. They can take some abuse from the drivers. So it's all about how much risk you're willing to put into the car, how confident you are in the car. And the converse, let's look at Luke Addison, who came in front of Bokida before the pit window opened. He came in much later in the window, and he's down in 12th position now, so he's got Reyes behind him, and he's losing time to Bokida. So it really does show, David, you can win or lose a lot in this pit window.
Yeah, Russell Race jumped him on the pit stops, didn't he? So Luke Addison has lost track position in real terms then. Some of the places numerically he will get back as others do pit, but he's further down compared to where he was, but now makes a move to the outside line of Russell Race coming up towards the Tamburello chicane, but he's not fully alongside, so Race able to brake late, stays ahead. Good switchback coming out of the Tamburello there. That's going to put him on the outside line, almost leaning on each other down towards the Villeneuve chicane, and he's done it. Luke Addison goes through good racecraft that, got his elbows out, and he's made it work.
That was sensational. Addison had no intention going down in a Tamburello to make the move. He was trying to put Reyes off. He was trying to set the move up for 3 corners down the road and delivered absolutely sensational. Addison, that for me is the overtake of the race so far, and I bet that's going to be one of the overtakes of the season. Sensational stuff, great driving from Addison, and with it the reward is another place gained.
Indeed so. Right, you're on board now with Kobe Chan in 12th. He's pitted. You know if people are pitted because there's a little green stripe next to their name. So the best of the pit stoppers is Dylan Tan, who was of course the overall race leader early on. It means that Andrew Lawrence and Matthew Pignata and then Yuki Shirakawa have yet to make a pit stop. Their one on the orange background means they have 1 pit stop to make, and Shirakawa has that time penalty as well to factor in of 15 seconds. So Kobe Chan will jump potentially 3 places once those drivers ahead serve the regulation stop.
And Chan, let's not forget, started 9th position in this race, so he's trending to be in and around where his qualification position was. Pignata jumps down pit lane to get that mandatory stop served, and Shirakawa, by the way, will have that 15 seconds applied to his pit stop. So it's not going to be a post-race thing because it happened and he was given the penalty before making the stop. He'll sit stationary for an additional 15 seconds, so wherever he comes back on the track will be his true running order. As Russell Reyes now 9th place, but still a couple of cars that are going to move out of the way shortly for him to move up the order. He's very much in the thick of things, and Nabiq Aslan is buying into this one in the McLaren behind as well. So Aslan looking on his tippy toes at this moment in time, David. I think the body language of that car for Nagieb Aslan suggests that he's interested in getting a few more places before this one's done and done.
That's the best of the McLarens, isn't it? And it's another car that has come alive in the second stint. It wasn't really a conversational point early on, but it's right there now. Quite a few drivers suffering a little bit with their connection. Look at Luke Addison, because his yellow bar to the right of his name suddenly grows, and that shows that the internet connection is getting a little bit weak, so he needs to be careful of that. Disconnection is an issue that has taken people out of races in the past. 24 minutes and change on the clock, lead gap 2.9 seconds. Tan to Stanley, Lawrence and Shirakawa 1 and 2 on the road. Not really the race leaders, because they've yet to serve their pit stop, and they're running out of time with only, what have we got, just under 4 minutes of the pit window to go. Right, that is Aslan with now Kobe Chan right up behind him. So the McLaren driver was keen on making progress. Now he's keen to fend off the BMW.
Absolutely, Chan to the outside. He's going to cut back to the inside again if he can. So well blocked there from Aslan. Just keeps the car in the middle of the road, prevents the cutback, prevents the disadvantage down this long start-finish straight for the run into Tamburello. And I think Aslan has just about got the legs, although Chan will be catching in the slipstream. But does he have enough real estate to get alongside before we hit the next braking point?
Let's find out. Then up towards the Tamburello they go. Andrew Lawrenson now comes into the pit lane, so the order starts to restore itself to what we had before the pit window opened. In other words, Tan and Stanley will be very soon the race leaders as well as the best of the pit stoppers. Luke Addison comes out to have a go at, yes, you've guessed it, Chris Sang, who he was chasing for stint 1. He's moved himself back into contention and makes the move on the inside at Tosa, and the door was open. So Luke Addison on the inside line in the red, white and blue BMW gets the power down, climbs the hill then, making his way up towards the Piratella, but he could not quite stay level. So it was good under braking, but he didn't have the grunt in a straight line. Chris Sang fending him off for the moment. Sang is on song.
Yay, very nice. And Sang seems to, he still doesn't have the pace, does he? We saw him drop away at the end of the first stint before the pit window, and again, Chris Sang's car, just not quite as comfortable looking on the track, not producing quite the lap time that we saw in qualification, and he's very, very much the car at the front of the field that's holding up those behind, which for us on the broadcast and watching at home is great news, because that produces very tight little packs of drivers squabbling for position. But if you're Luke Addison, leading class, you've got your class second place man right behind you and a slower pro car in front, it really gives you a lot to think about in these last 20 minutes, because there's plenty of risk but very, very little in terms of reward for making that position.
Shirakawa is in to get his regulation stop out of the way. He left that very, very late indeed. Right, Luke Addison goes across the line. That car yo-yos a bit in its pace, doesn't it? Because it has good laps and then it seems to drop away, and it takes Luke a little bit of time to recover. We saw that in stint 1. It's happening again here. Kobe Chan goes through now 9th. So what you have on the road is what we have in terms of the race order now, with the pit window as good as done. Everybody has made their regulation pit stop. But this is a long, long line of cars from 5th place back, and it could all shuffle before the end.
It really could. Adika Ramamolana still down in 15th position. He's all over the back of Lawrenson's laundry house machine in front, but Adika not moving forward like he expected. And just a bit further up, David, on the Filippo Bakita watch, that worked very nicely indeed. 4th position. Now everybody's shook out and taken their mandatory pit stops. So that early stop, that perfect timing to be crossing the pit entry line as the pit window opened, has worked wonders for Bakita and earned her 3 positions and quite a bit of time relative to those in front as well.
Yeah, although I'm not entirely convinced she's going to be able to do much about the Mercedes of Sotomuto. There is clear road ahead, as we now have a 10-second time penalty to Mohammed Irfan's Team Techno Honda NSX for causing a collision. Yeah, there's quite a lot of empty track that Filippo Bakita needs to make up, and of course we don't need safety cars in virtual racing, so it's got to be done on pure pace, or hope that somebody up the road makes a mistake to give her that time back. As for Andika Maulana,
6 drive-through track limits,
that he can't get out of this race soon enough. It has been pretty torrid for him. We also understand there is a track limits penalty coming the way of Andrew Lawrenson, a drive-through penalty for track limits. You can see against the man in 14th place at DT. In comes the Mercedes AMG. Andrew Lawrenson straight away serves the penalty, but a drive-through for track limit offences. And all of a sudden, Maulana's gained a place.
Yep, and that's the ever-present danger here at Imola. You need to be aggressive on the chicanes over the curbs to get the lap time out of the car, but the game will only allow you so many times what they deem to be going outside of the actual racing surface. You do that, you get warnings. You get 3 warnings, you'll get yourself a drive-through penalty that's controlled by the software, and that's exactly what's happened to Andrew Lawrenson. And on a track like this, as I say, it is very, very easy indeed to go over those track limits, either through racing, staying out of trouble, through being a little bit greedy, or just through simple mistakes. And I don't think, David Addison, that's going to be the last time that we see that DT against somebody's name before this checkered flag falls.
No, you're probably right, although actually 40 minutes in, it's interesting that we've got that far without it, because you're right, track limits are a constant issue here, and most modern circuits, you know, one of the current problems is the race circuit, you have the extra runoff tarmac, especially at Formula 1 venues, which therefore invites people to run wide, and you have low curbs at many venues because they are dual purpose, they are for cars and motorbikes, and you can't have steep sausage curbs there because a motorbike hits it and creates a big accident. So again, low curbs invite drivers to take liberties. 40 minutes in, only 1 penalty. Chris Sang still going defensive, still 5th, falling away from Filippo Bakita, who is doing her best to close on Sotomuto up the road. And that gap should be coming down a little bit. It is coming down a fraction, but still 7 seconds to make up is quite a lot of real estate.
Yeah, if you're Filippo Bakita, the only option you've got now is to bang in good lap times and just give Sotomuto something to think about. He'll see the lap times of the car behind, he'll see the gap gradually eking a little bit closer, a little bit closer. You want to just put him under some mental pressure, because Sotomuto doesn't really have anybody in front of him. He's 1.7 seconds away from Ferris Stanley. So get into his head. It's all about the mental game now. Get into his head, make him start to think about you, make him take his concentration away from the task in hand, and hope that he makes a mistake, because, as you say, Bakida 7.3 seconds at this level in 17, just under 18 minutes. That's not enough time to close that gap. It has got to be down to pressurising the driver that you see picture in picture there, Sotomuto for Williams Esports.
And see, if you're picked up by a Grand Prix esports team, you've got to be good. So Sotomuto presses on in third place, 1.7 seconds back from Ferris Stanley. Last lap he was slightly quicker as well, only by a tenth, but the gap was down a smidge. So can Muto in the remaining 17 minutes do anything about the BMW up the road? He couldn't really do it earlier on. He dropped away just as we had been witnessing a tenth a lap or so. The gap widened, but he's still pressing on, but the BMW remains the car looking more solid in second place. Although, that said, Dylan Tan has just had the most outstanding drive against the might of the BMW opposition within that leading 7. His Mercedes AMG has checked out.
Yeah, as a driver, what you want is you do not want to feature on the broadcast whatsoever. You want the most boring race possible, and that is exactly what Dylan Tan's delivered. Pole position, clean start, great into the first corner, sprinted away before the pit window to give himself some strategy options, stopped at the right time, got the car up to speed after the pit window completed his cycle, and then advantage at the front of the field. So Tan, very dull from an entertainment perspective, but exactly what he and the team are looking for to kickstart this season.
That got a bit brutal. Mitch Hobbs in the middle of a squabble there. There was contact as we go to see Kobe Chan. Now he is still on the attack with the McLaren of Naqib Aslan ahead. Zachary Smith's Aston Martin behind. So this now is 8th, 9th, 10th. And they're running together with, in fact, 11th getting in on the act as well, coming back after delays earlier. Shuning Gong's Audi. I think right in saying it's one of only 2 Audis on the entry, the other one being Amir Hosseini's Audi, which we've not really touched on. But for Gong, he's there in 11th and he wants to break into the top 10.
Yeah, this could go any way between these 4 cars at this moment in time. If you're Kobe Chan, you're going to want to get rid of that McLaren of Aslan ahead as fast as possible, because Zachary Smith looks incredibly quick at the Aston Martin. The car's coming alive in the second part of this race. It looks much more aggressive over the curves, much more aggressive on corner turning. So Zachary Smith is hungry to find a way past, but he's finding an Aston Martin sized gap somewhere around Imola is the difficult part of it. And there's a lot of risk involved, and if you're well into the top 10, as Zachary Smith is in 10th position, and the points that come with it, do you take that risk, or do you bank the points, live to fight another round?
Well, right now, he is certainly trying to unsettle that BMW, but it's going to be hard so to do. That battle, remember, between Luke Addison and Russell Reyes is also for silver honours, so those two still squabbling amongst themselves as Kobe Chan on the outside line tries to defend. He and Zachary Smith lean on each other. Kobe Chan is not to be denied, but in silver, half a second between the BMWs. That's going to be a really fierce battle now. There they are, look, nose to tail, and Russell Reyes getting onto the back of Luke Addison.
Yep, so as you say, that's the fight for the silver classification. Luke Addison's currently the leader from Russell Reyes. In 3rd in silver is Gong, 11th overall. Ristofani in 4th, 12th overall. And Huang in 13th and 5th in classification. So good performance throughout from the silver drivers. As we said at the top of the show, a silver in category due to their journey, the position in their journey into esport racing. But they are absolutely by no means a lesser driver than these pros. They're just working their way through the ranks, and expect to see a lot of these names very prominent in years to come as well, because that's what I love about SRO, David, and the esports series. It brings new names into the limelight that over time suddenly become household names in this world, and we've seen that immediately. Filippo Bakida as well, silver class driver, now 4th overall in pro.
And that was Russell Reyes making a small mistake. So for the moment, at least, Luke Addison has been gifted a bigger gap. That allows him to push because he's not defending, and then he gets stuck behind Chris Sang. So Russell Reyes will catch back up, and then Luke's going to have to go defensive. He would dearly like to jump Sang, not only for 5th overall, but to give him a barrier between himself and his silver opposition. 3rd in silver, in 11th overall is Shuning Gong, riding with Reyes over the line. 13 minutes and a bit remain up towards the Tamburello chicane. Brake hard, go left, go right, go left, and the gap does come down between Sang and Addison, and Reyes catching the pair.
Yeah, it really is. Now he's keeping a watching brief. The smart money, if you're Russell Reyes, is just hold back in the JMX Phantom car. Don't start to nibble away at Addison's rear. Allow Addison to get involved with the fight in the car in front. When they hold each other up, that's when you strike. Russell Reyes squabbling with the BMW is just going to hold the both of them up. So keep a watching brief, find out what happens, and then take advantage when the inevitable opportunity presents itself. But it's easy for me to say that one up here in the commentary box, but when you're actually behind the wheel and you see a car, you can't help but just get sucked up into that one as Lamb comes down pit lane as well in 22nd at the time.
Right, okay, so that's a drama for Lamb Law. Russell Reyes comes then out of the Aqua Minerale chicane, climbs the hill. Luke Addison is on the attack once more and has a look to the inside as they go down towards the Variante outer. Out of the chicane, go right, go left, get back onto the power. And Russell Reyes actually on this lap not really being able to come back at them as yet, but give him a couple more corners and we'll see whether he is nearer come the end of the lap. But right now he's struggling just to find that last 10th as he closes up under braking. Danger is the car might just wash out here.
Yep, so this is Addison now on board as we run again to break the timing beam on the start-finish straight. The Tamburello chicane is a great overtaking opportunity, but we've seen Addison use that one as a staging area for an overtake further around the lap. Will he do it again? He looks to the outside, there we go, pulls out of the slipstream, shows his nose, makes the car in front defend, which he does. Then Addison will try and cut back, almost catches the rear of the BMW for good measure, and that has delayed him. So Luke Addison tried to do a copy and paste on Chris Sang that we saw earlier in the race, but just a little bit too enthusiastic. He's made a marker though. He knows that this is going to be this is his for the taking.
So Formula BMW coming up towards Tosa, then Chris Sang from the Pro class, then the silver lead battle, Luke Addison, Russell Reyes behind him. And up front still, looking oh so dominant, is Dylan Tan as Marino Morella goes through in the Porsche. So down towards the Tamburello chicane, we are almost into the last 10 minutes of the race, but although we've got drivers in different classes and switching teams, in a sense it's like we've just carried on from last season. Dylan Tan, race winner 4 out of 5 last year, and yet again the opposition set to go away from this race, Paul, thinking how do we beat him?
And that's incredibly demoralising, David, as a driver. You know that last season, as you say, Dylan Tan was the form man throughout, very rarely made a mistake, always on form, always delivering to his maximum. The drivers will have gone away in the winter, they'll recognise that one, they'll have upped their game, working that little bit harder, working that little bit smarter, come back and Tan delivers exactly the same performance. As a driver, there's a very little time between now and the next race at Donington Park on June the 28th. It's so hard, you've got to find another gear, maybe even another 2 gears, just to be in the same postcode as Tan at the front of the field.
So, over the line goes Chris Sang. And Luke Addison again lines up to have a go. He's not prepared to just sit there. He's going to make the move, and this time it works. Fantastic stuff. Through on the inside line he goes. Luke Addison takes over 5th place and crucially now gets 1 car between himself and his class rival Russell Reyes. And now Luke Addison must be praying that Chris Sang is as defensive against Russell as he has been against him, because that will allow him to pull away.
Yeah, absolutely. Sang has been on the defensive all race long and almost immediately loses that position to Reyes and the McLaren as well as Aslan. Tries to nip through as well. So Chris Sang, exactly what we said. You get yourself out of that little train and all of a sudden cars are swooping past you every which way you look. Nagig Aslan gets the position in class as well. So Chris Sang loses not 1, not 2, but 3 spots in as many corners, and that will be so frustrating as we're seeing Chan now trying to buy into this one behind as well.
As the fat lady sang, because now it's sort of all going wrong for Chris Sang, isn't it? He's dropping place after place after place as the cars come into the chicane there. You've got the McLaren. You see how much curb they all use there on the inside, and that's your risk, really. It's a relatively high curb, so if you're prepared to risk the car, well, it's almost self-policing that part of the corner as far as track limits are concerned. Right, so now then, we have got Russell Reyes clear of Chris Sang. Let's see what he can do about Luke Addison. Their battle continues. That's the McLaren up now in the hands of Naqib Aslan to 7th overall. That's another of the Pro class cars. We're a bit low on the McLarens numerically in this race, but it's good to see that car going so strongly.
Yeah, it really is. And when the new Evo car comes on song in this competition as well, expect to see that one having a bit of a say at the front of the field, but that released for Assetto Corsa Competizione a little bit too close to the deadline for this season starting, which is why we're running the current 720S and not the latest iteration. That will change, I'm sure, as we progress into the season. I'm sure Nakib Aslan can't wait for that moment in time, because some new technology, hopefully some more performance for him, although going over the curbs like that one ain't going to help in any car whatsoever, and that is compromising now. Sang looks to the outside, will switch back to the inside line to try and get the run out of the hairpin, but doesn't have it quite lined up as Sang covers, as Aslan covers the middle of the racetrack.
Sang comes back at him then up towards Piratella, but to no avail. Behind is Kobe Chan, then Zachary Smith rounding out the top 10. So another good battle pack. Chris Sang, in fairness, well, no, he's been in a race come the end of the hour. He's been really, really busy. It's a shame in a sense that he's gone backwards towards the end rather than going forward, because I think he's had more airtime than anybody else in this.
Yeah, he's been fantastic defensive drive actually from Sang. It's fair to say he's not had the pace, or he doesn't appear to have had the pace of those around him, but he's balanced that nice fine balancing act between defending fresh air and defending when it's necessary, and he's really been very strong actually. I'm impressed with Chris Sang, and hopefully for him he stays out of trouble for the next 7 minutes, gets to the checkered flag and scores a solid result, because it's so easy, David, isn't it, as a driver, because you've got all the information in front of you, the radar, you can see where the cars are relative, to defend when it's not necessary and lose too much time.
And he's in danger here of getting tagged by Kobe Chan, who switches one side and then the other. So with less than 7 minutes to go, they cross the stripe. They're going to be 3 wide. Look, BMW, Aston Martin, Zachary Smith. You can almost feel the Aston breathing in there to try to find a gap. It wasn't going to work, but round the outside of Sang goes Chan. That's another place lost. Off the road, is that Aslan who's got it wrong? Or is it another McLaren? It is. It's Nabil Aslan further back in the pack. He rejoins. So it's all happening as we get late race, and Chris Sang, another place lost.
Yeah, did well to stay out of too much drama though. The Aston of Zachary Smith behind was really hungry to get involved, and now, David, we've got 3 cars in the space where there's only room for 1.
Kobe Chan up the curb on the outside line. Chris Sang comes back at him and gets the power delivery properly down as he comes out of the corner. Ahead of the pair of them is Tamer Aslan, Nakib Aslan. And round the outside, Kobe Chan. On the inside line is Chris Sang, and Sang should be able to stay ahead as he comes downhill. Yes, he got the tighter line, the quicker line, and he's got the place back.
Good stuff there from our drivers. Just to answer MK23 in the chat on YouTube, the yellow bar next to their names is their connection status. So of course we're racing in the APAC region, so it's a very, very distant the drivers are in terms of geography compared to where all the race control and where David and I are commentating from. So that's their status, connection status to the server, to answer that question. And a big hello as well, by the way, to everybody watching on YouTube on GT World. Thank you for being with us. Make sure you subscribe. There's more of this.
And Kobe Chan goes wide, loses a place potentially out of all of that. So he drifted wide coming through the first element of Rivazza, and it's cost him dear as they come up over the line. So Tan, Stanley, Muto, Bokida, Addison, Reyes, Aslan is the top 7. It was ever thus, and then behind as they come over the line, 8th is Sang, 9th is Smith, down to 10th is Chan, and in 11th place now is the Audi of Shuning Gong, which wants to try to gain ground before the end. So Kobe Chan was making progress, has now dropped back with an error. Zachary Smith chips away, takes 9th place. 4 minutes and a bit remain. Dylan Tan, 3.5 seconds to the good.
Yep, it's worth bearing in mind as we come to the checkered flag stage of this race. We're paying points all the way down to 15th position in this race, so it's really worth your time to make a couple of places up 35 for the victory, all the way down to 1 for P15. So every place is points, every place is part of the cash prize pool as well. We pay it down into 10th position in the pro and silver class, so it's very important not just for your championship but also for your bank account to get a good result here.
And especially with a relatively short season, limited races, you've got a bank point where you can. No further action between the cars of Yugi Osaki and Terry Rayton. Terry, somebody else we've not really touched on, but he's been another stalwart racer for the Laundry House. He's in a Ferrari this year as Russell Race comes up to have a go at Luke Anderson. This isn't over until it's over, is it? These two BMWs have been almost together race long, and right now we're going to squeeze possibly 3 more laps out of the race to determine who wins the class. Chris Sang comes back here. Look at Nakib Aslan in the McLaren Axel Sports entry. And Zachary Smith fancies his chances of going around the outside, which means Kobe Chan gets up the inside. The BMW levels with the Aston Martin as they head towards the line. Great racing this. First stint, you were right, Paul, overtaking was tough. They weren't listening in the second stint.
Yeah, absolutely. Now the money really matters. This is the final few laps, last few opportunities. Reyes down the inside. Do they make contact? No, they don't. Reyes closes up. Further down the running order, Kobe Chan in the middle of everything. The Aston Martin, a little kiss to the rear quarter. That sends him onto the gravel. Got to be careful to rejoin, but doesn't bother being careful at all and has a secondary kiss. So you want to kiss 1, you want to kiss 2. It's a good night out here, but Kobe Chan is missing out big time and loses 3 positions as the Porsche sneaks his way through as well.
And also treble 2, Rialto Aristofani's MPRGP BMW gains ground. Shuning Gong comes back up the inside of him. Porsche gets hung out to dry, so Shuning Gong comes through. Has he done it? Let's see as they head up the hill. Going Gong. He's done it. He's alongside. He's going to get the place heading into the Piratella this time. So the Audi with the Porsche then of Huang trying to follow him through on the inside line. It runs the BMW out wide. The Porsche gets sideways and then yet back on the inside line down to Aqua Minerali. Look comes Ristofani. He's done it. Gong gets run out wide. 1 place lost, 2 places lost. He's still all over the curb.
This is like watching touring cars again, as Gong now just about holds on to that Audi. Great bit of car control there to keep it stable as it rejoined over the sausage curbs, and again aggressive through the chicane at the top of the hill. But Shuning Gong needs to calm things down a little bit now. That's a bit too much aggression, a bit too much risk at this stage in the race. It is better to hold position and bank the result than it is to throw the car at the scenery. But we said, David, everything's going to heat up in the last few minutes, and yeah, I think it's heated up quite significantly.
It's going to be hotter and hotter, isn't it? Right, there's going to be 1 more lap at the end of the one that he is on for Dylan Tan, if you're with me. So he's got just under 2 laps to go, and he's 2.8 seconds ahead of Ferris Stanley. Then in third, Sotomuto. That top 3 has barely changed other than on the pit stops. Filippo Bocchida, however, after a decent qualifying, fell back at the start and has made progress to 4th, but is not catching Muto. There is Filippo Bocchida. So it's been a good recovery, but it makes one wonder what could have been done had the start been better for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we said off air, David, that Bocchida, I might be wrong factually, but it gives me the impression that in recent seasons she's faded in the second half of the race relative to a strong first half. But it's great to see that that's not the case here today. So Bocchida, strong all the way through, made the right strategic calls, and she's going to be one to watch as the season progresses, because being in and around the top 4, top 5 all season long usually puts you in the exciting positions come to check her at the last race of the year when we head to Suzuka a little bit later on. I think when are we in Suzuka? September the 6th. So Bocchida, a strong marker has been laid down in this first race so far.
She was the dominant silver last year, but underlining just how strong the pro category is this season. And again, great battling all the way up and down the field. This battle pack we've been looking at for the last few laps has got silvers and pros all mixed in together. So the race leader is on his last lap now. Dylan Tan looking oh so strong. So last year's champion opening his account in fine style. Paul very shortly can get last year's questions out of his box to put once more to Dylan Tan, because it's like nothing has changed. But behind, Shuning Gong has not given up. He was making progress into the top 10, now finds himself back in 13th, and I don't think he can come back from there with only a lap to run.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything comes down to this now. All the preparation, all the testing, all the training, all the planning, all the assessing what the right strategy is, where you're going to make the moves on your rival, comes down to one final 4.9 kilometre tour of the Imola Grand Prix circuit. And for some of these drivers it's redemption, for some of these drivers it's consolidating what has been a strong race. But I'll tell you something now, David, there's going to be some people smiling and some people very, very sad in about a minute and 30 seconds time.
I think the majority of people that have watched this will be smiling, because we've had a pretty lively race. There's always been a good battle somewhere, and in 118, still pushing on hard, is Quisheng Huang in the full pace racing Porsche. In turn, he's on the back of the BMW of Rialto Aristofani. They're both silvers, those two, and both actually have made good progress. They weren't anywhere near the top 10 early on, but they bounced back. But Dylan Tan makes the run downhill then towards Ravazza for the last time. we might end up having to watch the coverage back to make sure there were more people in the race, because barely has he seen another car other than in Lappery. He has dominated the race, and last year's champion comes into this season in fine style. Checkered flag is at the ready, and the opening round of the Mobileye GT World Challenge Asia Esports Championship is won by Dylan Tan. He takes the checkered flag, having dominated the opening race here at Imola.
Yeah, absolutely. Sensational performance. Ferry Stanley, a quiet afternoon's work, but very effective in second position for BMW BS Competizione. So good stuff for Ferry Stanley, and Sotomuto just holds on in the end from Felipe Bakida by 9.7 seconds to round out those podium places.
And what about Silver then as they come up towards the line, because Luke Addison fends off Russell Race by just 0.4 of a second. He therefore in number 13 BMW wins silver. Russell Race behind him, and then next across the line it is going to be Nakib Aslan, Chris Sang for 8th, and Zachary Smith has pitted, it says, right at the very end, but I think he was still good for 9th, with 10th going the way of Rialto Ristofani. Fantastic racing throughout the field, although the one driver that might think that life is really cushy in this championship is Dylan Tan. But well done Luke Addison then, who comes home victorious within the silver class, and he had to work hard for that.
Yeah, he really did. A superb performance. Fast when needed to be, smart when he needed to be, able to execute those overtakes with minimum fuss, minimum risk. So good performance from Luke Addison, and 3 silvers in the overall top 10 as well, which shows that that is another category, David, that is incredibly strong this season as our new cohort of drivers come into the Mobileye GT World Challenge Esports Asia Sprint Series.
And it's great to have those new names coming in, and it sets us up nicely, doesn't it, for the next round of the championship as we have a look at some of the highlights of that opening lap. But that was where Dylan Tan was able to hit the front. Ferris Stanley did his best, but he was just never able to match the pace of that leading Mercedes AMG.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're a driver of Dylan Tan, he's got a target on his back now. Everybody's going to be going away, mark my words, and thinking about how they can beat him. And next time around, Dylan Tan, it's not going to be easy all season, I am absolutely certain.
Yeah, I think you're right. 1 or 2 drivers on the opening lap finding themselves in a fair amount of mayhem, but they were able to battle their way back into action. And that silver fight between Russell Race and Luke Addison was traded throughout, wasn't it? Russell Race so briefly got himself ahead, but superb battle between the two, and perhaps it's silver where the majority of the action's going to come if nobody can work out how to defeat Dylan Tan. But we'll find out more about that in round 2.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, we're seeing it on our screen there. Some incredible racing between the top 2 in silver, pretty much for the duration of the 60 minutes. And it is so difficult for anybody who's watching at home that maybe hasn't done much in the way of esports sim racing and thinks, oh, it's just sat down behind a computer screen and pressing the pedals and turning the steering wheel. It's an incredibly physically and emotionally and mentally taxing thing to do, especially at this kind of level. So to see these guys going tooth and nail, lap after lap, seemingly corner after corner, a little kiss between the two of them on your screen on the replay there. It's a massive result. It's a massive result for Addison to be able to go on and take that victory, plus the pro cars in the mix as well, as Sang did well to stay pretty much out of trouble to cross the line 9th.
Yeah, I thought that silver fight was fantastic, and not only was it a great battle that went down to the wire, but it was also well up the overall order, and we had some fantastic fights, especially with the pros. Chris Sang was always in a battle somewhere, so a really good race. That great way to start our Mobileye GT World Challenge Asia Esports Championship season. And although numerically BMW's had lots of cars up there, that Mercedes of Dylan Tan, as we keep saying, is going to take an awful lot of stopping. And even on the last couple of laps, there was plenty of drama on the fringes of the top 10.
Yep, so everybody still watching at home on YouTube, thank you all very much. Remember that we're going to be in action again in the Asia Series on the 28th of June at Great Britain's Donington Park circuit. So please do make a note in your diary to come and join us. The Asia Series is often, like you've seen today, David, full of incredible racing, maybe some names that are not so familiar to you out there as well. So I implore everybody to take a piece of this drama today, remember it, and come back again on the 28th, because in the Asia Series there's a lot of hard racing and a lot of fun 60-minute event.
Great opening round to the season, and congratulations to Dylan Tan, who joins us in the commentary box, and he can reflect on that race with Paul Jeffrey.
Fantastic stuff. Dylan Tan, race winner again in the Asia Series. How are you feeling after that one?
Really happy about it. Wasn't expecting to win, to be honest, as we know that the BM was actually faster, but just put it off.
So, talk to me about your race at the front of the field. Is it easy to lead from the front, or what sort of strategies do you have to employ to keep the gap and the traffic to those behind?
Basically, I just stayed consistent and just pulled away and try not to make mistakes. Yeah.
So, coming into this race with a mandatory pit stop, do you have a pre-planned idea of when you're going to stop, or is that something that evolves over the course of the race?
Yeah, I have a strategy to when to stop. Yeah, so
the next race is at Donington Park. You're dominating so far, both last year and this. Are you feeling confident heading into the British track?
I think I am quite confident, but I can't be 100% sure, so just have to work hard for it.
So, tell me, for the people at home, how much practice do you put in for one of these events to produce an incredible performance like that?
Quite a lot. Just I practice every day, so quite a lot. Yeah.
Fantastic. And before we say goodbye to you, do you want to say a message to anybody, to the fans and to your team and your teammates and your rivals?
So I would say thank you to my team, LOR Racing and Mercedes, and my teammates also.
Right, brilliant. Dylan, go and have a celebration and congratulations from your team. A great performance, very well done as the winner of round 1 of the season.
Thank you.
So there we go, everybody. That was Dylan Tan. David, dominant performance, and you can see the emotion in that interview there. It's a man that's just a machine, isn't he? He wins, that's his job done.
Absolutely, but interesting to hear him say that he wasn't really expecting to win because of how quick the BMW was, and perhaps that underlines his ability. You know, we kept making the point that numerically there were lots of BMWs up there, relatively few Mercedes AMG, and if the BMW was the stronger brand, and yet Dylan Tan was able to piece it together for the race victory, it underlines his ability. If you needed that underlining after what he achieved last year, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And that just goes to show it's no longer an amateur sport, is it? They're professional drivers. You saw the branding around him as well. He's no doubt on site at the team HQ, trains every single day. He's got the branded clothes and everything. He looks after himself as a fit young man that looks after the mental side and the physical side of it, and does everything he needs to do to deliver the result in races such as this, in such commanding style.
It was dominant, wasn't it? I mean, he doesn't put wheels wrong. He does not make mistakes. Everything is done properly and impressively. And you can understand when you look at that why the success comes. You know, we've seen other people making little mistakes, not as many as, say, 3 years ago, but Dylan Tan is just metronomic. He goes round and round and round without error and without much deviation in the lap times. It's all very, very impressive.
And it's so hard as a driver as well to continue that kind of level of domination and up the game every single time. When you're in a race, you're fighting, you're battling, your concentration's focusing on delivering what it is that you're delivering. But when you're at the front of the field dominating, it's very easy to slip, like Senna did back in the 80s. It's very, very easy to slip. And by the way, while we're saying that one, a massive shout out to our esports imaging partner Dynamic that you see on screen there, the image of the race. They do fabulous work. You can see them online and on social media as well. And to Gary and Dynamic team, great to be associated with you once again as our official imaging partner for this season.
I think that's a great shot that just encapsulates everything about esports racing in Imola. Great brand variety in the shot, great backdrop as well, showing the local countryside. So another of Gary's top images from Dynamic, and there'll be more from Donington in that second round of the Mobileye GT World Challenge Asia Esports Championship.
Yep, absolutely. So all that's left for us to do now, Mr. Addison, I think, is to thank everybody for being along on this journey with us once again as SRO Esports in the Asia region kicks back into gear for a new season. Donington Park, June the 28th, is the next time that we go racing. So thanks to Mobileye, Fanatec, AWS Pirelli, AK Esports, SimGrid, SRO Esports, and of course, Assetto Corsa Competizione, and the man himself, Mr. David Addison, alongside me. From me, Paul Jeffrey, thanks for watching. And until next time, bye-bye.